So Iran is sending oil to Lebanon, right? Now, this is hilarious, the developments that have occurred. I'm just going to read you a brief recap when I was reporting on this a few days ago, okay? So, in a huge blow to the United States, Hezbollah has just announced the first shipment of oil from Iran to Lebanon. Sayed Nasrallah warned the United States and Israel to stay clear of the vessel, as the ship would be regarded as Lebanese soil the moment it set sail, and aggression won't go unanswered. This is in direct reference to Israel's numerous attacks on Iranian ships sending fuel to Syria, who's crippled by sanctions. And the United States itself has pirated, literally stealing and selling off Iranian oil on its way to Venezuela, also under sanctions. And it's ironic that politicians like former Prime Minister Hariri, who are unable to even form a government, are criticizing Hezbollah's move to help the people, as Lebanon is not only experiencing fuel, but also food shortages now. If he has a better plan, where is all the oil from his Saudi friends? And then in his speech, Sayed Nasrallah underscored the invaluable friendship with Iran and its unwavering commitment to its allies, even during the most desperate times, citing the martyrdom of General Soleimani outside Baghdad airport last year. And of course, Iran itself, again, is under sanctions. So, I mean, I really can't underscore enough the terrible situation in Lebanon. People are really suffering there. You know, there are several reasons for this, of course. One reason is the war on Syria, the sanctions on Syria, because Syria and Lebanon's economies are very much intertwined and interlinked. Another reason, of course, and perhaps this is the main reason, as most would agree, is the corruption. I mean, the Ponzi scheme that has been going on, right? We've had Rania on the show many times, and she always brings up this phrase, which is really the perfect way to describe it. It's a Ponzi scheme. And people, they talk about the Prime Minister, Hariri, or the former Prime Minister, but as Rania correctly pointed out, the head of the central bank is also at fault here. You have numerous other politicians who are at fault here. And the corruption is so rampant. I mean, every country has corruption, of course, but unfortunately it's been exacerbated in Lebanon for various reasons. And here we are. And so people, there's not only a fuel shortage, they're starving, you know? I think just a month ago, we went through the economic crisis in Lebanon on the show. I mean, we've been going through it for a while now, but I just tried to explain to you how badly people have been hurt, right? So what they could afford before, what they can't afford anymore due to the inflation. And there was a good article on this, but I mean, I don't think anything encapsulates it more than this image. So this is from Twitter, right? No bread, no fuel, no gas, no electricity, no coverage. The crisis in Lebanon needs more attention. This is heartbreaking, seeing it virtually an empty fridge. And it's very bad now, right? So, I mean, people are unable to get bread. They're unable to get basic necessities because of how bad this thing is. And what's been going on in the government? They're screwing around. And they weren't even able to form a government. Again, I did a great thing with Rania. She was wonderful, and we explained all of this. It's just from 2 weeks ago to 3 weeks ago. So go watch it on the channel if you want more detail about the formation of the government. And with the oil now, we also looked at this because there is a huge shortage, specifically not of just crude oil. We're not just talking about oil, but benzene, diesel, and this is something that Hezbollah said they might do. They warned or announced about a month ago, that they might bring in oil from Iran. And this, of course, you have to consider this is crazy because, how dare you, as some of these politicians are saying, including the former prime minister. They're afraid that if Lebanon starts importing oil from Iran, then Lebanon will be sanctioned, right? Because that's how sanctions work. If you deal with the targeted party, then you might be fined or jailed or targeted yourself with sanctions and so on. And, when this happened, when Nasrallah announced that they're contemplating bringing oil from Iran, the next day, or the same day, I can't remember, but, during the same period that he said this, Iraq suddenly said that they're going to double their output to Lebanon from 500,000 tons to 1 million tons per year. The problem is it's crude. So Lebanon does not need crude oil, and it can't do anything with the crude oil. It needs benzene, it needs diesel. So we're talking about stuff that's already been refined. Yes? It doesn't have the infrastructure to deal with such amounts of crude. Okay? And this was very clearly, though, a panic move because, Iraq, of course, it's not completely free of the United States tentacles. So the U.S. probably pushed them to do that. Or, you have other internal reasons as well. But when Nasrallah announced a few days ago that it's a done deal, that they're doing this now, that Iran is sending a ship, take a look at what he said, okay?
Not to intervene.
السفينة الآتية من إيران والتي ستبحر بعد ساعات أقول للأمريكيين وللإسرائيليين هي أرض لبنانية.
Nasrallah said the shipment would be the first of many, but the delivery would violate.
So you heard what he said. He said it's Lebanese soil. If you mess with it, it's going to be considered an attack. And what happens? Immediately, the United States springs into action, right? This is what they start doing. So Michel Aoun, who's the Lebanese president, he receives a call from the U.S. ambassador on the U.S. decision to help Lebanon extract energy from Jordan through Syria via Egyptian gas. Look at how desperate the United States is to undermine Iran. They want to give them energy through 3 other countries by involving Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. That's how desperate they are to undercut and undermine Iran. That's how scared they are. So here's another article, okay? So the Minister of Energy and Mineral Resources in Jordan, she said last week that King Abdullah II affirmed Jordan will work with partners and friends to help Lebanon. Okay? So this is the possibility of supplying Lebanon with electric power from Jordan and Egyptian gas via the kingdom, right? And Syria to Lebanon. I mean, this is so hilarious. They're so desperate to make sure that Iran cannot increase its ties with Lebanon that they're willing to go get gas from Egypt and then convert it in Jordan and then send it through Syria and then into... Dude, Iran is sending them what they need. They're sending them diesel. There's nothing to do with it. It's just there. It's already refined. It's done. You don't need to convert it and go through an entire process of refinement and turning a goddamn gas into... This is hilarious, honestly. This is absolutely hilarious. How scared they are. And it seems that every time Nasrallah is suggesting that Iran could send fuel, Iran is sending fuel, you immediately see the United States jumping into action, right? Like here we have the US ambassador calling the president to block Iran. They're so desperate. They want to keep Lebanon in a state of misery, suffering. People can't eat. People got no fuel. But they won't let anyone else help them. What is that? And like I said, Hariri is complaining about this, but Hariri has very close ties to the Saudis. Now, some people would say whether he likes it or not. But the point is that you have a lot of people complaining that, well, this is dangerous for Lebanon. If Iran starts bringing in oil, then Lebanon would be sanctioned. And, they don't want Iranian influence and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, but what's your solution? What's your solution? They don't have one. They think that this is okay. They think that this being allowed to continue is okay. No, this is absurd. And when Nasrallah, he underscores the friendship and Iran's commitment, it carries weight with it because you have to remember Iran itself is under sanctions, right? So Trump pulls out of JCPOA. He slaps Iran with sanctions, banking sector, oil sector, and the energy sector, and he screws them. Now, of course, Iran has done very well, don't get me wrong, for a country that's under sanctions, more sanctions than all other U.S. sanctioned countries combined, right? There's like 1,500 sanctions on Iran. So they've done quite well, but still, they're in need themselves. And nonetheless, they still send fuel to Syria. How many vessels of fuel have they sent already? And when we were talking about tanker wars, you know, you have Iran sending fuel with these ships to Syria. What was Israel doing? Israel was coming and destroying these ships. You know, you had mysterious fires breaking out all of a sudden, right? The last 2 years, it's been like that. And then, of course, we covered this when the Mercer Street, this Israeli-owned vessel, got hit and so forth, you know, just a week ago, 2 weeks ago. So these vessels that Iran has been sending, even though it can't really afford it, it's still been helping Syria. And then Venezuela. Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. It can't refine them because the infrastructure has been crippled and destroyed by U.S. sanctions. They don't have the parts necessary. They can't afford to do it. It's too costly. And you know, when you're under sanctions, you can't. It's not about going and getting parts or something from the U.S. No, it's that other people won't give them to you or help you extract these oils because they don't want to be punished by the U.S. And let me remind you another thing. The U.S. was Venezuela's largest energy customer, right? Yes. So Venezuela exported most of its oil to the U.S. And that, of course, has, you know, they've been hit not just by loss of revenue, but also, as I said, by their inability now to refine any of that. So Iran has been sending them fuel already refined in order for them to meet their energy needs. And, you know, I've spoken with the UN Special Rapporteur on Sanctions. I spoke with the Venezuelan Foreign Minister, Jorge Ariasa, who's now, by the way, he's going to head the industry and development. And you can't have a country functioning without fuel. You can't do anything, man, without fuel. This is crucial. And nonetheless, Iran has been helping Syria, has been helping Venezuela, and now they're helping Lebanon, even though they themselves are targeted with sanctions, and they run the risk of having their ships attacked and sunk by Israelis. So, and not just that, but if you recall also the British, what did they do in Gibraltar? They went and started holding Iranian ships, remember? And then the Iranians were like, okay, you want to hold one of our ships? We're going to hold one of yours. And that's the only thing that let the British release the Iranian ship. So this is in 2018, 2019. And so now Nasrallah, he's warning them, if you attack our ship, if you attack these ships that are coming from Iran, we will perceive it as an attack on our sovereignty because these are Lebanese ships. That's what he's saying. And he's also suggesting now that maybe Iran should come and start extracting crude and drilling in Lebanon. And I mean, take a look at this. So Coral Oil Company stopped supplying Lebanon with petrol, okay? A key oil company in Lebanon said Thursday it would stop supplying its gas stations with fuel amid severe shortages that have brought the crisis-hit country to a halt, okay? And you have, the point here that I'm trying to make is that you have numerous Western companies and other companies that are, you know, stopping operations in Lebanon, and Lebanon is already hit pretty badly, and it's just worsening it. And so Nasrallah is suggesting, well, why don't the Iranians just come and, why don't we just let them come and do it? And it's funny because every time he suggests something, you see the West scrambling to kind of mitigate the disaster, right? So it's only when he threatens, quote unquote, to let or ask Iran to come help Lebanon that they spring into action. As I showed you, they're so desperate they want to run Egyptian gas through Jordan, through Syria, and then to Lebanon. So maybe he should continue, quote unquote, threatening to work on economic projects with Iran, and then maybe the West will stop screwing over Iran with this de facto economic siege, and maybe these corrupt politicians will stop screwing over their own people. Who knows? Who knows? You know, I really can't overstate how much people in Lebanon are suffering right now. It's really bad. And, you know, when you have basic necessities that aren't being met, this is disastrous. So we'll see what happens from here. The ships, they need a few days to get to Lebanon. And from my understanding, they will set port in Syria, in Tartus, and then they will bring the fuel to Lebanon, right? So we'll see what happens. If the Israelis attack the ships or something. Who knows, man? I mean, like I said, they've been playing this game now for years, right? Attacking Iranian ships. We'll see what happens. I think, personally, I could be wrong, but I think personally that they won't do anything. I think they won't risk it because they're scared of Hezbollah since 2006. They're very scared. So I don't think they're going to risk a confrontation. And we'll see. I hope the situation in Lebanon gets better because this is really awful seeing people suffer like that, really.